I just got off the phone with a call to talk. Call to talk is if you dial 211 here in Massachusetts, that's what you get for it's like suicide prevention hotline, but it also says emotional support, which I don't know why they do that, because if you're not wanting to kill yourself in the next 10 minutes, they don't want to deal with you anyway. So there's nobody who helps, okay? And that's my problem. It's gonna be March tomorrow. I don't know. I've complained about my bills before. I've complained about everything before. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do to help myself. I told you, when I came home years ago, years and years and years ago, when I was a much younger person, and I had strength, and I came home because I had lived in New York, and I had a lot of bad jobs, and the last bad job I had, I was trying to get out of there, and I was trying to get another job, but where it was located, I couldn't find a job. I couldn't search for a new job while I was there because it was too far removed from everything else. So eventually I had to quit in order to try to find another job, and then I did not find another job, and that's how I ended up coming home. So technically I shouldn't have quit that job before I had another one, but I didn't know how to do it from there. So I ended up coming home. Like I said, this is so long ago. And then when I came home, I immediately started looking for a job here. And I looked everywhere. And I applied everywhere. And I applied to anything I could physically get to. I don't have a car. I don't have money. I didn't have a car or money then. So I had to look locally, and in the hopes that once I did find a job, I would be able to get a car. And then if I had to use that car to get to a better job, then fine. I wasn't asking for anything special. I wasn't asking for any kind of fancy job. I was applying at Walmart and the movie theater. And I was applying for the kind of secretary jobs I had in New York. And I was doing whatever I could. And nothing happened. Okay? People weren't calling me at all. Not for interviews or anything. And I didn't know what was wrong. I was 25 at the time. And I didn't understand it. And then I started to put on weight, and that's how I got fat, because I was home all the time. I was at the career center, or I was home. And I would go there, and they didn't help you find a job. They did resume workshops and shit like that. And then if you still couldn't find a job, they would try to get you to redo your resume when nothing changed. You know? So I just went through that for a couple of years until I was like, I'm going to lose my mind, because doing the same thing and expecting a different result makes you crazy. And then I tried volunteering, I tried doing other stuff, and then after a while I would go back and try to look again. Same thing, nothing happened. That's how I ended up just hanging on and living here with my mom. And she ended up taking care of me, which was ridiculous. Everything I ever did was so I could take care of her. I had perfect attendance in high school. I was a good kid. I got into a good school. I went to NYU. I wanted to be successful and then take care of her. And the exact opposite happened. Okay? Like I said, I'm not a thief. I'm not a criminal. I don't do bad things. You know? I didn't hang around with the wrong crowd. I didn't do any drugs. I didn't get in any trouble. I was never arrested. I didn't even get fired. Okay? And then all of a sudden I was in this situation where I just could not get a job. And it stayed that way, okay? And it stayed that way all this time. There was a point in time where I got sick. And then after that, I tried again. I thought maybe because I got better, that it was my second wind. It wasn't. And then everything that happened in the last few years. And I just been hanging on every day, hoping that something happens, because I don't know what to do, and I haven't known what to do for a very long time. And I sit there and I rethink over my life, and I'm like, what was I supposed to have done all those years ago? What was the mistake I made? What was the thing I didn't do? Trying to figure out if I can figure out what I did wrong then, maybe I can figure out what I can do now. So I've been going through this. And then I had so many things go wrong last year. And I knew I needed to move on. And I wasn't moving on. If it meant I had to sell this house, which I don't think I can sell it. It's so bad. It's so messed up. And I don't have anywhere to go anyway. And even if I did, there's so many bills now. Whatever I get, I probably have to just give it all to people that I owe money. For, bank stuff. And so that's why I kept staying here. And not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go. And, I was going to, I didn't want to go to a therapist. But I didn't know what to do because I'm like, I'm not moving forward. It's either me mentally, because I wasn't selling the house, because I wasn't moving on. I knew, it wasn't practical, but I also felt like maybe it's me, maybe it's my mind, maybe I'm stuck in my head, maybe because of everything that happened after my mom died and stuff, and all the shit I had to deal with that lawyer and stuff. I thought maybe, and because the COVID lockdowns locked me down, and the whole probate thing, instead of me quickly hurrying up and doing everything right after my mom died, I had to wait, and maybe putting my brain on pause stopped it, So I thought maybe that's why I wasn't planning anymore. Maybe that's why I wasn't coming up with any even stupid plans. I couldn't think of the future anymore. That's why I started looking for a therapist. And then I ended up going to this woman for all this time. I only told her that I didn't want to go a couple weeks ago anymore because it wasn't helping. But I thought I needed a cognitive test. I never got that cognitive test. I'm not on any list. And I'm telling this guy on the suicide hotline all this stuff. He had nothing to say to me. And they've done this to me before, and they have nothing to say to you. And then at some point, they're like, okay, well, I have other calls. And that's what he just did to me. And that's what they do to people. And it's like, listen, I may not be going to kill myself today, but every day is a fucking struggle. And I don't have any reason to keep going forward. And people need to know this. This is why I get so angry when a celebrity kills himself or their son kills himself, and every fucking moron on Twitter starts saying, well, here's this suicide hotline number, because those lifeline numbers all lead you to the same phone number. So wherever state you live in, you call those suicide hotlines, it's going to send you to the same one in your state. So if I called one of those hotlines, it would send me to the guy I was just talking to. Okay? It's the same thing. So you can't call somewhere else and maybe they'll be more helpful, or they'll be kind, or they'll actually talk to you instead of just letting you talk. And that's all this therapist did. I would go there and I wouldn't know what I was supposed to say. So as somebody who's a conversationalist, as somebody who in a room of people would get the ball rolling in a conversation, I just start talking. I start talking about nonsense. I start talking about what's going on in the world. And then time would be up and I didn't get anything out of that. Nothing helped me. It just delayed me again. And I needed, the whole reason I was going to a therapist was I needed a jump start. I needed somebody to help me get my ass in gear and just move forward. This is what I'm saying. People act like I'm asking for some incredible things. When I was going to the career center, I was asking for help getting a job, and there was no help. And then I went to this woman and I needed help moving forward, and all she did was sit there and have me talk about like I was like my whole life was great and I was just there because I don't know, my friends are mean to me, or I don't have any friends, or something. Like, no, I needed help with my brain. I wasn't going to her for other help. Okay? And if I talk too much, people get the wrong idea about what I'm saying. I wasn't going to her for anything that wasn't mind help. I needed to know if the reason I wasn't moving forward was because because I forget, because I mix up my words. I do feel like something's going on. Maybe it's normal for my age, but my brain doesn't function like it did not that long ago, because I forget. And sometimes when I get upset and I get nervous, I start doing the completely wrong thing. And in 6 months, not only did I not get an appointment for a cognitive test, I'm not on the list. And I tried calling them myself. And they told me about there being a list, and they won't put me on the list. I've done everything I can. I don't know what else to do. If I could go somewhere and fill out a job application and get that job and do that job, I would have done it all this time. That's what I did in the beginning. And with money, I could help myself in that way, but I need too much money now, and I don't have it, and I don't see what in the world I was supposed to do different. And like I said, tomorrow's March, and in March they might start shutting stuff off. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I guess I could live here without running water. I don't know, and I've been trying. And these people who are supposed to help, I've been complaining about this and nobody understands. Look, like I said, I'm a Sagittarius. I'm a lone wolf. I wanted to do things on my own. I wanted to be independent. When I went out in the world, I never thought there'd be a point in time where I wouldn't be able to get any job. Yeah, maybe not a great job, maybe not the job I wanted, but I never thought that could happen. And when it did happen, it was a shock to me as much as anybody else. And I swear to God, I think people don't believe me. I can't stand up all day. The other day, Saturday, I was in the bank. I needed to put $1 in the bank. So I went down there with 100 pennies, and I had to ask them for the little slips. And I was in the bank, and they had a little place where I could sit and roll them. So I made my 2 penny rolls, and I'm standing in line, and it's about a 10-minute wait. And just those 10 minutes, my left leg starts to go numb. It has to do with being fat, but it's not even just when I'm this fat, because I realized when I lost weight and put it back on, it's about 150 pounds. Once I go past 150 pounds, if I stand anywhere for an extended period of time, my left leg starts to go numb. So I can't be a cashier, okay? And I'm standing there in the bank, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, why do they have to stand up? You know? And they're all heavy set too. And I'm like, does that not happen to them? Because, you know, you go to Walmart, you see fat people working behind the cash register, and then sometimes you see them walk into their car, and they look like they're in so much pain. If it just hurt, maybe I would think I could do it, but because it goes numb, that scares me. And for 20 years, I've been fat, and I wasn't a fat kid. It just happened again. Like I said, once I came home and I couldn't find a job. So that's why after a while, I only ended up looking for jobs where you sit down. But as I'm standing there Saturday, and I'm just like, why is it that I can't do that job? Why did things work out in such a way that you know what I mean? I wasn't somebody who's like, oh, I have this degree, I'm too good to work in these places. No, I just couldn't physically do it, and they didn't want me anyway. And when I look at myself and I look at the world, I'm like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And that's what I've been trying to ask people for a long time. What's wrong with me? Why can't everybody else figure it out? Why does everybody else find a slot in this world? But I just didn't have one. I didn't belong here. No, I'm not going to kill myself in the next 10 minutes, but you know, that's been a thing. It's been a thing. It's been like, what's behind door 3? It's like I really feel like someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe years from now, that someday I'm just going to be pushed to do that because there's really no other option. There's no way for me to survive and without living a horrible life, so that the only way out of the horrible life is that. That's why I can't stand it when every time somebody commits suicide, they say it's mental illness, mental illness. No, maybe their life was so bad and there was nothing else they could do, and the only logical thing to stop living their very shitty life was to kill themselves. That you would not be insane if the only end to your practical suffering, suppose you're being beaten by someone. Suppose you live in a situation where you're being beaten by someone and you don't have anywhere else to go. And when you try to get help, I'm not saying that's me, I'm giving an example, okay? What if you're in a situation where the only way you can keep hanging on? Yeah, you can keep hanging on. But what if you've been hanging on forever? And the only option that you can see to stop you from going through it for another day, for another month, for another year, for another 5 years, is to end your life. That makes you, that person's mentally ill. No, this is why I can't stand it. I can't stand it because I'm not mentally ill, okay? I did go to a therapist. She diagnosed me, like I said, with anxiety and depression, which I think is the coverall that they give people, and PTSD, which I do think I had a little bit of that from a long time ago, okay? But that doesn't mean you're mentally ill. That doesn't mean those are the only reasons why somebody ends a life that's bad, a life where you suffer every day and you see no way out. You see no way out of your suffering. Or you think that as bad as it is, it could get worse, because that's where I'm at all the time. That's where I've been all this time, and I keep hanging on. But one day, and I don't know when that day is, all this hanging on that I've been doing, I might not be able to do it anymore. I was in the, well, you call it a bodega, but, you know, we used to call it the corner store. Okay, so there was a bunch of people who were all in line, and this was the first time I think nobody had a mask on. And we're standing there, and I'm hearing the people behind me talk, and somebody's like to the other person, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" And it's like, day by day. And the person says to them, "Yeah, that's all you can do." It's like, "Yep, you just got to do it day by day." And that's what I've been saying to myself. And that's what I've been saying to other people for the last 2.5 years because of my situation. But that's what everybody's been going through. And I even brought up the thing I saw. I was talking to this guy just now who said nothing to me except to tell me he had to take another call. And then every time I said something, he kept getting confused because I brought up the story, and then he's like, "So you're saying you had COVID?" I said, no. So last night on the nightly news, they were talking about, and this is why I talk about news things, because when I look at my life and I say, okay, these are the reasons I suck, but what about everybody else? What about what's going on in the world? You have to understand, as much as I suck, as bad as I am, everything was compounded for me by the lockdowns in a severe way that I feel like the only practical chance I had was taken away from me by the state of Massachusetts with their probate law, and then by the lockdowns making that go on for even longer. That's what I believe. Maybe there was something I could have done, but what I was being told by people was that I had to wait and wait and wait. There's a chance that if I had known all the laws of the state of Massachusetts, and I wasn't sad at all about my mother dying, that I could have quickly done something, even against what the lawyer was telling me, if he was just telling me things so he could keep making money off of me or whatever. There's a possibility that, yeah, there was, but I didn't know it. I didn't know it, and I still don't know it. So these things, whatever happened, whatever was complicating people's lives already, the lockdowns made everything that much harder. And I'm sitting here and I'm watching nightly news, as I do every day, and they were talking to people who had long COVID and they couldn't get disability, okay? And they were trying to get disability because the one lady got fired because I guess, I don't know why, I guess it had something to do with her being sick from this long COVID, but she's trying to get disability. She couldn't. So she's writing everywhere, and she wrote all her congressmen, all the congressmen. And she's not just sitting there. You know, she's trying really hard, and all her bills are piling up. But then they said, this is the part that I want to make you understand about the bullshit and the ridiculousness that people go through. The guy comes on, like an expert or a doctor or somebody comes on, and is explaining how these people that have long COVID, right? Long COVID meaning they have lingering symptoms, that go on for a long time, which will cause them to be impaired in terms of being able to get up and go to a job, even if they had one, right? So these people have long COVID, and they can't get treatment for their long COVID because their insurance doesn't recognize long COVID as a disease. Okay? And they can't get new insurance because they have a pre-existing condition, which is long COVID. Do you understand? So, what I've seen and what I knew the world to be stupid, I knew things to be a mess, I knew about red tape, I know about bureaucracy, I've known all that shit for a long, long time, okay? This is why I never wanted to go in the system, I never wanted to be part of the system. But this is what happens. This is why when people hate anybody who they think are quote-unquote on welfare, anybody who gets any kind of help from the government, you don't know what people have to go through to get help in the first place. It's a freaking nightmare. So if you think people are just kicking back and getting all kind of stuff and they don't want to work, please reconsider your thoughts about that. Because everything is made impossible. So these people, they have long COVID. And I'm not talking about disability because the woman's not able to get disability. That was what this thing started being about. I'm talking about the part where they can't get treatment for long COVID because it's supposedly not a disease as far as their insurance is concerned. But they can't get better insurance because if they go try to get better insurance, that insurance is going to tell them you can't come because you have a pre-existing condition, long COVID. This last 2 years has been a mind fuck for so many people because of all the bullshit we've been through. People got sick, some people died, these people have long COVID, everybody's life is a nightmare. Gas prices, even like I knew the inflation would happen. Everybody else acted like the inflation wasn't going to happen. What's going to happen next year is the people who had money, the people who are now having to pay a bunch of money for their food like everybody else, and they now have to pay, but because of the gas prices, because when gas prices go up, the food goes up. Because if you want to buy milk, if you want to buy bread, they didn't make that stuff in your store. They don't have cows in your store. So the milk had to come from somewhere. The bread probably, some stores have their own bakeries. That's probably not the bread you're buying. You're probably buying, I don't know, some kind of national brand of bread, Wonder Bread, whatever. That stuff is coming in a truck. Those trucks run on gasoline. So when the price of gas that goes in the truck to bring your bread and milk to Walmart, to the grocery store, when that gas goes up, the trucking people have to pay more for the gas. That means that that Walmart has to pay more to them or their own people or their own gas bills or whatever. The store has to pay more to get the items, the milk, the bread, whatever, the sneakers, the deodorant, whatever. They have to pay more to have it transported to their store. That means you have to pay more for that item. That's what inflation is, and usually you can tell by the gas prices. So that's why gas is so important, because everything runs on that. And the more it costs, the more those costs are passed down to you when you go and try to buy a thing. It's not just the gas in your tank that's going to cost you more money. Your bread is going to cost you more money. Everything's going to cost you more money besides the gas in your tank, because that's why. Because the stuff you're buying in your local shop has to be transported there by a vehicle that runs on gasoline as well. So this is what inflation is. This is why you don't want to do things that cause inflation. this is why you don't want there to be you don't want there to be a problem in a country that the United States gets gas from. You know, you don't want there to be a problem where the United States doesn't have its own pipeline because of woke politics, okay? Or silliness about climate change, as if you're going to stop it. Nobody's going to stop it. Nobody's going to stop it. But you can make life for people right now who are living in the climate. You can make their life a living hell by making everything cost more money when everybody has less money. And I know a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people got, oh my God, a lot of people got unemployment. And then a lot of people got, a lot of people who had underage kids, like school-age kids, they got those tax relief things or whatever, but I'm still not sure if they have to pay that back. I never figured out how that works. So there are some people who actually are all right. You know, people who had good jobs and were able to keep them in work throughout the pandemic. People who had younger kids and were able to get these extra helps and stuff, or the extra stimulus because of the kids. And but then there's something that happened, and this is why sometimes I swear Massachusetts, because when I went through the thing with probate and I had to wait a year, and again, it's not my fault. You can blame my mom if you want. I couldn't sell the house immediately after my mom died because she didn't have a will. And I'm her only child, and she was never married. So when there's no will in the state of Massachusetts, whatever stuff there is, like a house, doesn't immediately become yours, like, because they have to wait a year for anybody else to show up and make a claim on the house. So that's why I had to wait a year, and even though I had no money, and I had to hang on, and I thought it was just going to be a year, and then because of the lockdowns, because of what the lawyer did, I don't think it was just specifically because of that rule. I think it was because of the lockdowns. The lawyer did something where he didn't pay certain bills, and because he didn't do that, that meant that, I guess, the bills had a year to sue. They had that year, but I don't know. So it tacked on 3 more months, and then those 3 months made all the difference in me feeling like I had a chance. But so in Rhode Island, right next door, from what I understand, their probate thing is only for 3 months. So if I had lived next door in Rhode Island and the same exact thing happened to me, I would have been able to sell the house 3 months after my mom died. It would have been mine. The point is not would I have been able to sell it, would have been mine, because the reason I couldn't sell it, I would have had to have sold it for enough money to cover, to please the state or whatever, and cover, but he wasn't telling me all this stuff. I had to look it up on my own, and cover any bills that might have come in, and that, you know what I mean. And this, like I said, this house is, it's bad. So like I said, right next door, and so you have to, if there's no will, you have to wait a year. Right next door in Rhode Island, if there's no will, you have to wait 3 months. So had it been 3 months for me, the house would have been mine in 3 months. That's the point. If there's no will and you're supposed to inherit the house, you have to wait a year in Massachusetts for it to definitely be your house, because they want the year for anybody to come and make a claim. In Rhode Island, it's 3 months. So had it been 3 months for me, all of that would have happened before the pandemic hit. A couple months before the pandemic hit. Here's why I'm bringing that up, because last week or the week before, I heard Massachusetts accidentally gave a bunch of people, not stimulus money, but one of these things. I don't know if it was unemployment. It was one of these things where they paid people. People applied for some kind of help during the lockdowns from the money that Massachusetts got or whatever. So I think it might have been unemployment. So they gave all these people, they approved these people and they gave them money, right, for months or whatever. Then Massachusetts comes up with, oh, we gave money to a bunch of people we shouldn't have, because they shouldn't have qualified. But these people put in applications, were approved to get this money, and then the money was given to them over time, right? Now Massachusetts is like, oh, yeah, they shouldn't have been approved. We shouldn't have gave them that money, so they're going to have to pay us that money back. Apparently, again, in Rhode Island, same thing happened. People applied. They were told they qualified. They were given money. And then Rhode Island found out, oh, wait a minute, we shouldn't have approved them. But Rhode Island is saying, okay, that's our mistake. You don't have to pay us back. But Massachusetts is like, no, you owe us that money back. And I don't think that these people were underhanded or anything. I don't think that these people were trying to scam the government. I think people applied, and under normal circumstances, if everybody was paying attention, they wouldn't have got approved. But I don't know if they just didn't do it, the state didn't do it right, or the people, you know, I don't know. For some reason, they approved people. It's not like, you know what I mean? They approved people who shouldn't have been approved. And there was one guy who's like, he's going to have to pay back $15,000. He's like, I don't have it. You know, and it's like money that people spent because they got it. And I'm sure they weren't buying jet skis. I'm sure they were paying for bills. I'm sure maybe they bought new shoes because they needed new shoes. You know what I mean? Maybe they did buy a nice thing. Maybe they bought, you know, a new TV or something. But they filed paperwork and they were approved. And then after being given this money over and over, now they're like, oh no, you owe us this back. I never wanted to be in a system. I never wanted to ask for help. But at some point, you find out it's nearly impossible to do things on your own. That makes me angry. That upsets me. It upsets me that you can't just look. If there were all these jobs open in the world that were open to everybody and you could apply to them, and as long as you could do the job, they would consider you. I wouldn't have a problem, but you have to understand. They have all these reasons. They have all these reasons why they won't even consider somebody. Whether it's your resume isn't perfect, there's a gap in it. You don't have a brand new vehicle. You can't work nights and weekends. There's a million reasons why a person who's willing to work, who wants to work, who's way better than me, who has a way better situation than me, has a way better resume than me, won't even be considered for a job that they can obviously do. Like I said, every time I call one of these people and I'm dealing with them on the phone and they're making mistakes on my behalf, it drives me crazy because I wouldn't make those mistakes. There's so many people I call and I'm like, I could do their job. But I could never get hired for their job. Whether they got a certificate, whether they went to a program, whether they did something or they just knew a guy, or like I said, at this point, you become unhireable and people don't understand what that means. It just means, in a lot of cases, it just means you're not working right now. There are so many jobs in this world, in this country, excuse me, that are sitting there and people can do them. And thousands and thousands of people are not even considered because they're currently out of work. And that makes them unhireable. And I wish the people who hate people who go and get help, and I wish the people who think that government is bad, because it is bad. But it makes other people dependent on it. It makes people need it because the system is rigged. The system is so corrupt. And there's an inherent stupidity in so many of these things, because we're talking about private businesses now. I'm talking about places you go every day: McDonald's, Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts. These are the kind of places that they won't hire somebody. These big places that have jobs all over the country. It's them where somebody up on high decides they're not going to hire anybody who's currently not working. And then that goes for the whole country. And that's the way they hire throughout the country. You know? And people don't know that. So they see that they're hiring at their local McDonald's, and then they see a panhandler, and they're like, well, why don't they go work there? Not only am not giving that guy money, I hate him. Why doesn't he just go across the street and get that job? Because you have to understand there's barriers to so many people who want to have a job getting that job. And it's because, consider the word unhireable, undesirable. Okay? There's all these people in this world who don't have a job, who need a job, who would be willing to do so many jobs. But by the people who hire, they are considered undesirable. And you would assume that unhireable means that that person, there's something, Corey background check says that they committed a crime at some time, they were a pedophile, or they, no. Unhireable doesn't mean you have some criminal past. It doesn't mean you got fired from all your other jobs. It just means you do not have a job today. That's what unhireable means in so many instances. It doesn't have to mean anything else. So that person who is unhireable at McDonald's is probably also unhireable at Wendy's, is probably also unhireable at all these places. So when you see somebody and they don't have any money and they don't have a job and you're going to judge them, why don't they go get that job? I want anybody who thinks that, why doesn't that person go get that job, understand that there are millions of people who are unhireable by the standards of a lot of these big companies. And the only reason is because they're not working right now. So everybody you see who's not working right now, it's that much harder for them to find a job than the person who is working right now and doesn't need one. That person just wants a new job. They don't like the one they're in. They can get hired 1,000,000 times faster than the person who desperately needs a job who's not working right now. And I need people to understand, I don't want you to believe me. Either look up what unhireable means, just Google it, or ask somebody you know who hires people at one of these places. Hey, would you hire somebody who's not working right now? See what they say. And if they say that, then you have no right. And if they tell you, hey, we don't hire people who aren't working, or it's company policy, because of course a normal person who needs employees is not going to say no to somebody who wants to work and who looks clean and proper and doesn't have any criminal past. They're not going to say no to that person. But if it's company policy, and you have to understand that all this stuff I'm talking about, all this, it's not just government bureaucracy. It's not just government red tape. There's all kinds of red tape in this world. There's all kinds of policies and liabilities and all these things that stop people from hiring people who want to work. They have to vet everybody. Everybody has to have a squeaky clean past to get hired for a bunch of jobs. Because if say somebody did have something on their record from a long time ago, and then the company hires them, and then that person gets accused of something, they get accused of saying something inappropriate to somebody, and then the person tries to sue the company, right? Then the company has to pay all this money if they get sued. That's why companies don't take these risks, okay? Because everything's about liability and getting sued and all these things. This is what I'm saying. This is what's made the world an impossible place for a lot of people. Like I said, years ago, I never liked George W. Bush, but years and years ago, they were asking, he was at something, and they were asking him, if you could say what the one problem in the world is that's causing all the problem, what's the one thing that's causing all the problem in the world? He stood there and he said, lawyers. And I looked at that man and I said, you know, I thought he was stupid, but I think he's right. This was long before I had to deal with this lawyer. But he was right. Knowing all the things I know, you can tell I'm not completely stupid. Yeah, I do think I have a cognitive issue. You should see me sometimes. And I've said how on these tapes, sometimes, or these videos, sometimes I go back and I watch them to make sure nothing's wrong. And I'll hear myself say something like, that doesn't make sense. I said a completely different word than the word I thought I said. So there's things wrong. And I forget things. And there's something wrong with me. But I'm not an invalid. And I'm not mental. And I'm not a bad person. There are just a lot of things I can't physically do. Like I said, I don't have a car. But there are a lot of things. There are a lot of jobs I could do. If I'm mentally stable enough to do them anymore. Because like I said, I don't know what would, even if I got hired tomorrow somewhere and I just was somewhere answering phones and it was a hectic environment. I haven't been in that kind of environment in a long time. I haven't had a boss in a long time and co-workers and stuff like that. And I don't do that great with people. So that's why I had said to the therapist, I don't know that anybody would ever hire me again because nobody wanted me before. And I don't know that I could even do a job, so I wasn't sure. So I said maybe the only kind of job I could do is the kind they give to people with special needs. I know I don't have special needs, and I said that to her. And she's like, oh, you know what? And she came up with this program. After me going to her for many, many months and having the same situation, she came up with this program for me to go to where they're supposed to help those kind of people get a job. But they also would, and she thought I should qualify because I hadn't worked in so long. Beyond whatever she thought, whatever she's diagnosed me with. But even by that, I should be able to get help getting a job because of what I'm being diagnosed with. And then I waited, like I said, for 3 months, and now I'm up against it. And it's like, I've waited all this time. And then I had to call and ask the lady, and she was literally making me wait for nothing, for some kind of training programs or something. And I'm like, are you serious? And then she puts me through to this thing. I had to do is, I never did Zoom. I was afraid to do Zoom. This Zoom orientation thing, and they're just saying all the same shit they said to me years ago about references and writing a resume. And then I really did start to get PTSD, and I really did start to freak out because it's like that path of resumes and references was a path that was a dead end for me. Just having to do the job search on my own, or having somebody help me write a resume. I don't have references. I haven't had references since soon after I came home because my last boss died. I know, it sounds ridiculous. My last boss died. The boss before that retired. Now this is before the days of Facebook, remember? And then the boss before that, the company shut down because he sucked at his job. So I didn't have, a couple years after I came home, even if somebody tried to hire me, or somebody did get me in an interview and then ask me for references, I didn't have them anymore. And being home and no money and nowhere to go, at that point I only knew family. So I didn't have any people who could vouch for me who I worked with before. I didn't know anybody anymore. And I didn't have any references. So even if it got to that stage, which it never got to that stage, even if it got to that stage, I didn't know what to do. So I'm sitting here Thursday, and I'm like, I can't believe this. And now March is banging on my door. And I really thought I had hope here. And the false hope is the worst fucking thing. And that's what's been driving me crazy, is the false hope of all these, oh, call this place, they'll help you. Oh, there's going to be help with the water bill. Call here. So many people gave me false hope since last September. That there was some kind of help and I was going to be able to make it. Or that I was going to be able to get a job, something. Like I said, March is tomorrow. Once they figure it's warm enough that they could shut off your utilities, they start shutting off utilities, and I can't pay that. It's astronomical now for me. I mean, it's like, I forgot what she said. It's somewhere over $400 because I haven't been able to pay it since November. and it's about $60 a month. But I also had the overdue part that I had a payment plan on, and I couldn't pay the payment plan anymore because I had zero. Since December, I've been collecting bottles, and I've been searching all over the house for coins and pennies. That's why I pretty much think I got all the pennies now. So that's why I was at the bank with 100 pennies on Saturday, trying to keep my bank account open. I've just been trying to hang on to being a human being. I've luckily had this house now. It was partially a prison. If it hadn't been here, sometimes I don't know, I wouldn't have been trapped in Massachusetts after my mom died if I wasn't waiting to inherit this house, with the house being a possibility of money to get out of here, but then it trapped me here. And now it's not money anymore. It's just a house. It's my house. I grew up in this house. There's so many different reasons. I don't want to live anywhere else now. I thought for 20 years I just wanted to go back to New York. And then when my mom died, I said, well, if I sell the house fast, maybe I'll have a little bit. Maybe I could try to go back to New York and start again. But then I couldn't sell it. And then everything happened. And New York isn't New York. Nowhere is what it once was. Yeah, everything's going to start coming back online now. But it's too late. It's too late. So many people are ruined for multiple reasons in the last 2 years. I can't be scared about nuclear war. That nuclear war, if that happened, I wouldn't have to worry anymore. You know, that's the sad thing, that I wouldn't have to worry anymore, because I'd be dead. But nobody understands. And I don't expect them to. The problem is I don't understand it either, and I lived it. And I don't understand trying and calling everywhere and doing everything, and just another dead end. At the end, it's too late. If I knew there was no help last September, if I knew there was going to be no help in December, it's just people keep telling me, oh no, wait, do this, oh no, wait, do that, and then you apply for something, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you hang on, in hopes of, and then it just disappears. My stomach's growling, and it just disappears in front of your face. It just goes up in a puff of smoke. All that hope was bullshit. And you're older, and you're tireder. I fell asleep last night, 8 o'clock. I fell asleep the night before, 8 o'clock. I hardly even did anything yesterday. I finally was able to do laundry in the laundromat because I went to a food pantry where they give away laundry cards. I had tried to go to that one in November or December. And I called the day before, and I'm like, well, it's supposed to be a hurricane tomorrow, or something like that. Or I called to make sure. They only give it away once a month. And I called the day before, and I asked all the questions and stuff. And it was supposed to be bad weather the next day. She said, oh, no, we're still going to do it. And I said, okay. And I looked on their website, and it said they only, and she said they only cancel the food pantry thingy if the weather is so bad that they cancel school. Okay. So the next day, it was like a mini snowy cane. And it was snow and wind, and it was bad. And everybody was supposed to stay off the roads. And I looked and school was canceled. So I said, okay, they're not doing it. And then I went the next time thinking they would have the laundry cards the next day because obviously it get canceled, right? And they're like, oh no, we gave them away on Wednesday. I'm like, you were open? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, so I missed that time. And then the last time, I think I was sick that morning. I meant to go. I was sick that morning. And I'm not saying I didn't go because I was sick. Because I was sick, I forgot. So I needed to wash my blankets. Because I've been washing my clothes in the sink. I mean, well, I have a bucket, you know, and I get the sink water and detergent, and I've been washing my clothes that way and hanging them up in the bathtub. Because I haven't had money to do laundry. I just found old detergent that I had bought at the dollar store that I never used because I thought it smelled too much. So I was usually buying the, you know, more glorious $2 detergent from Walmart, and I haven't been to Walmart since November because I don't have money to take the bus to Walmart. So when I'm getting food, I've been walking everywhere, and it's either far or downhill, which means I have to walk uphill, and then it hurts. And then walking all over, going all over the house looking for coins, linoleum, stuff like that. And then having to take those coins to, it takes me 3 hours to go to the grocery store. It takes me like 40 minutes to walk there. Then I'm in there. Then I usually rest on a park bench or something. And then come home. And that's where I take the bottles to cash them. And that's where I take the pennies to cash them. This time I went specifically to bank so I wouldn't have to pay those incredibly extravagant Coinstar fees. I've been doing everything I can. And I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted every day. And I've been tired. I've been tired. And like I said, I've been pushing myself like crazy. Because I don't want to borrow any money anymore. I'm not asking anybody anymore. I said that already, and I ended up asking somebody to borrow $5 the week before last. And I felt so bad because I said I was never going to do that again. Because I already asked these people. I owe people so much money. Nobody wants to be like this. Nobody wants to live like this. A lot of people that you know right now are impacted by COVID or the lockdowns. Whether they had people die or not, whether they had people get sick or not, they've got family members like me who are a mess or something and who need help. And they're helping them. They're letting them borrow money. Those people didn't do anything wrong. They're just nice or kind or feel bad or they feel like, you know, you're supposed to help people when they're down. They're being impacted because maybe they have multiple family members who need financial help, and there's nowhere for us to go. I know I've talked a long time. Why do I do this? I did this today because I'm sick and tired of calling a lifeline place because I'm so upset. And it's the middle of the night or it's the morning. And then being like, whatever, we have to talk to other people. Because I'm always hearing about how you're supposed to ask for help, especially in those circumstances. And like I said, just because you're not going to kill yourself in the next 10 minutes. These therapists aren't there at those times. Then you can't save your panic for when your appointment is. Because by the time the appointment comes, 50,000 other things have happened. And you're there talking about something else. Here's what I know for sure. And the reason I have all the beliefs I have about government, all the beliefs I have about what party and this party, I don't believe in parties. Neither party, nobody who's been in government for a long time is ever going to fix what's wrong with it. All of these agencies, they help somewhat But what you have to go through in order to get that help, this is why during COVID when people needed help, there was such a mess with people applying for things. No. There should be automatic help so that it's just there and people can get it. And it shouldn't be all these hoops that people have to go through. Help that everybody can get. Okay? That's why UBI was something, because it's universal. Alright? Any kind of help I've ever wanted, I think everybody should get. Not just the lowest of the low. Okay? If you had everybody getting help, monetary help, then you could get rid of all these agencies. Do you understand what I'm saying? So all the government money that goes to these agencies that you're already fed up with would just go into an easy, streamlined process of everybody getting help, not just some people. And that help would be there for everybody. And then all these grants and all these programs and stuff, like, to me, I would get rid of all these things and just have UBI, and all the money that goes to these grants and stuff, and all the money that goes to these things that are really way too much money. A lot of people get paid really good salaries to put me on hold and do nothing. All these government programs wouldn't be necessary, because people would have a set amount of dollars to decide by themselves what to do with. Do they want to spend it on food? Or do they want to spend it on, I don't know, rent, cigarettes, whatever. Or if they don't need the money, I don't smoke. I think cigarettes are the stupidest thing in the world. I'm just saying, if you just help people in a very basic way, which I know people are against that too, because they don't think people, again, they think you're supposed to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I really wish that people understood. Like I said, I did everything right. I was a good kid. I was a good student. I did nothing wrong. I had some bad jobs that didn't pay me enough anyway. If those jobs paid me enough money to stay in New York, none of this would have happened. None of this would have happened. Because as bad as they were, I would have stayed there. The jobs I had didn't give me enough money to pay my bills. And they were shitty jobs, and they were driving me crazy. I would have stayed in those jobs if they paid me enough to pay my rent, pay back my school loans, pay the phone bill, calling my mom every day back home to make sure she was all right. If I had if that job I had that I quit paid me enough so that I could pay all that, I would have never quit. As much as I hated it. That's like the major crime of my life. That I quit a job that was driving me crazy, that wasn't good, that I wasn't using my brain for. I went through all that school to have a normal secretary job. That was the only job I could get. And it wasn't enough money. It was only, I graduated from NYU. Okay, I have a bachelor's degree from NYU. And I was working at the Museum of Natural History as a secretary for $18,000 a year. I had to pay $500 rent. I had to pay about $500 in school loans. Like I said, I was calling my mom. This is before the days of cell phones, to make sure she was okay every day. She lived alone. I lived alone. Didn't cover it. Didn't cover it. If it had, none of this would have happened. That is a not-for-profit, right? It's today now, and I was I have to call. The water company is now open. I can call them and see if they have a date to shut off people's water yet. Could be tomorrow, and I'm scared to death. And that's why I called. That's why I called the Lifeline number or Call to Talk, because I'm scared to death. I still don't know what to do, and I have no recourse, and I don't know what to do. And I just kept hanging on, and I kept going day by day, hoping something would click, hoping I would find something, anything. It's just a bunch of dead ends and assholes who tell you to get help and then don't help, and a lot of false hope. If anybody is listening to this, do me a favor. Don't ever give people false hope. If you don't know what you're talking about, keep your mouth shut. Don't tell people how great tomorrow is going to be. Don't tell people that there's this thing they can apply for and everything's going to be all right. Don't tell people there's going to be this thing that's going to help them find a job. Do not give people false hope. There is nothing worse than false hope. And if somebody isn't going to kill themselves today, don't ignore them. Okay? Don't ignore them until they're ready to kill themselves. Because they might not call then.